And happy September. Welcome to the month. This is Greg Larson on the Dakota Housing Network, along with my cohort,
Dave Floor.
And our special guest, Nancy Willis, who hasn't stopped writing since she got in the studio. Wow. She's making copious notes.
Oh, yeah, right.
No, they call us part of a panel of experts, but we really have an expert in the studio.
That's because we know who we are.
Yes, we are very certain of who we are.
That's right. Well, David, let's talk some interest rates and what's going
okay.
on. And how's my lunch looking? Of course, I can't lose.
Talk about that. You can't lose either way. In case you don't know what Greg and I are talking about here, as far as his lunch goes, is one of our other co-hosts, Joe Sheehan, and I have a bet on when the Fed will raise overnight interest rates. I'm saying September. Joe says no, and probably December. But anyway, the loser or winner, I guess the loser, has to buy Greg lunch. So I don't lose either way because I get to have lunch with him.
Yeah, I don't know how I got into that deal, but I like it.
It's a good deal. Well, we're being nice to our realtor friends. See,
there you go.
That's what Joe and I are doing. But let's talk interest rates this week. What did they do? Freddie Mac. Excuse me. I almost gave credit to the wrong people there. They do their weekly survey. Freddie Mac does the 30-year fixed rate for this week, ending September 3rd, averaged 3.89%. That is up from last week when it averaged 3.84. Oh, my gosh. 5 basis
Big
points.
Change.
A year ago, the 30-year fixed-rate mortgages averaged 4.1%. So we're pretty much where we were a year ago. 15 years. Boy, if you want to get a 15-year mortgage, it's still a great time to do that. This week it averaged 3.09%, and a year ago it was at 3.24%. So it is still a great time to get a 15-year mortgage. So interest rates are just kind of floating in a range right now. Really have not moved much at all. Now as far as our bet goes, we've got our friend Elliot Eisenberg, the bow-tie economist, says they're not going to raise.
He said
will not raise their overnight funds rate.
Yep. He said the stock market dipsy-doodle had happened, and the economy in China will keep the interest rates stable for the next 6 months.
All right. Now, Larry Summers used to be former Treasury Secretary, I think, for President Clinton, right? Was he Bush?
Don't know.
I don't know if he's a Republican or a Democrat. I can't remember. All right. Anyway, he's warned the Fed against a rate hike. And additionally, the International Monetary Fund warned the Fed about hiking rates. They once again warned the Fed and other central banks about any tightening of policy in the current environment. Now, this presents a difficult situation for the Fed. This is from our friend Barry Abib at MBS Highway. If they hike rates and there are unintended negative consequences, when aren't there unintended negative consequences to government stuff, right?
Yeah.
The world might say that you were told, but you ignored our warnings, which could hurt the credibility of the Fed. I don't know. What do you do?
Yeah.
If they don't raise rates and something happens and they should have done it, and then they don't know what they're doing. But anyway, in everybody's defense, these really are just educated guesses. They are.
Nobody has a real crystal ball.
Yeah, there will be more than likely negative unintended consequences if they raise rates. But you don't know what would have happened if you didn't do it or did do it. So they have to make their best estimate and best guesstimate on is now the right time to do it or not. So anyway, Greg wins either way.
I do.
In 2 weeks, we'll know. In 2 weeks on this show, we will know who's buying Greg lunch.
Yeah, and in 2 weeks, I'll be in Watertown, South Dakota at the North Dakota South Dakota Realtors Convention.
Oh, that's right. I'll be there too.
So the lunch payoff won't be right away.
Well, I'll be there.
Oh, okay.
But that's all free lunches down there.
That's true. So you want to cash in on that one, don't you?
Lunch. Yeah. No. That would be mean, wouldn't it? No, I will not cash in on the free lunch for Greg in 2 weeks. I will buy you lunch. Okay. All right. So that's it. Interest rates, they're just floating around. Go lock in if you're going to buy a house, right? Just go do it.
Yeah, that's. Right. I think I brought this up before. My father bought his first house in 1952, and he paid an outrageous interest rate of, you ready? 4%.
Oh, my. Gee, we haven't come very far, have
So
we? We had some fluctuations.
We bounced around in the middle, but
Oh,
we're
okay.
still right there at about 4%, and that's
Okay.
kind of interesting. Nancy, we have a bunch of stuff we want to talk about today. Some fun, some kind of silly.
Who is Nancy anyway, by the way? Who is
Nancy
this person?
Willis.
We
should
said she's
do that.
expert.
Nancy is the Government Affairs Director for the North Dakota Association of Realtors. And she's had the job
really high.
she's had the job for not quite 2 years.
Yeah, just 2 years.
Just 2 years. And I will tell you that she's a walking encyclopedia.
Yeah.
She's a real asset to the North Dakota Association of Realtors. And a fountain of information. Pressure's on.
Okay.
Oh, jeez.
But one of the things that we wanted to talk about is the where is the activity in the state in the housing market right now? What's going on? Is that at the bottom of your stack of stuff there?
No,
or?
actually,
All
it's
right.
not. Well, actually, according to our data, which is through the end of July, the number of houses sold year to date is really about the same. There are some swings in our different market areas, though. Sales in Grand Forks are up 19%. And we're really glad to see that because there had been a real tight inventory there. So I think that shows us that inventory has loosened up a little bit in that market.
Yay, Grand Forks?
Yay.
Okay. All right.
And Jamestown has a 30% increase in sold houses. So
That's good, too, because they had inventory issues.
Yep, they
Yep.
did.
Yeah.
And I think we're really seeing growth in the Jamestown market. There's a lot of things going on there. So on the other end, Wahpeton has had a decrease in sales, but I think theirs is due to inventory as well. I think they've got a very tight inventory right now. Days on market are 65 days. That compares to 70 in 2013. So not that big of a change, but I would just tell people that think that their house is going to sell the next day when they put it on the market that that's really not going to be the case most of the time.
No. Really?
Really?
I have to sit on it for like a week?
Well, and remember that is, lows and highs.
Yeah,
so,
okay. All right.
Yeah. But active listings are similar to last year, and August was a busy month, so we anticipate numbers are going to continue to be strong through 2015. I mean, things are still looking good, so I think people should be happy about how the real estate market is doing in North Dakota.
Yeah, I had a friend of mine sold their house. I think they're closing on it tomorrow. They cash offer, and they considerably less than what their asking price was, but they were fine. Cash offer and close in 2 weeks. So they took that. Their house is probably on the market for 2 weeks, I think, locally here in town. So
Okay. So the market has not slowed really anywhere. And I think if you're looking at average sales price is probably up. Average list price is probably up. Days in the market is going to stretch out, but you know what? We're just going back to normal on that.
yeah,
Which is
correct.
probably healthy. So
Yeah.
we're looking at that. So we're coming up on a break here. Let's get ready to talk about what's going to happen in western North Dakota and Bismarck with what's going on with oil prices and in housing a little bit, and we'll move on from there. So are we ready, Jim? All right, we'll see you after the break.
Currently, it's 75.
Get the traffic and weather information you need anytime on Supertalk 1270 and online at supertalk1270.com.
And welcome back to Dakota Housing Network. I'm Greg Larson here with my cohort Dave Fleur.
Yes.
And our guest is the Government Affairs Director for the North Dakota Association of Realtors, Nancy Willis. Nancy, we were talking about home statistics, home sales and things, and we were just getting ready to move to the central and western part of the state. So how is the sales activity in Bismarck and Minot?
Well, when we look at it by region, everybody still is doing really well. Badlands, which is the Dickinson area, they're up by about 5%. Bismarck is down a little bit, 5%. But
that's in numbers of homes sold.
That's in numbers of homes sold. Fargo's up about 5% as well. We already talked about Grand Forks and Jamestown. Minot's down by 3%. Williston's down by 8%. But considering the concern about what was going on with oil, that really is still a strong number for western North Dakota.
And that's year over year, right?
Yeah.
So that's off what you would consider normally last year historically high volume of homes sold, or
Yeah, I think if we're going to take a 5-year average, all these numbers would be up over the 5-year average.
Right.
We're just comparing this year to last year.
Right. This
Right.
is this year to last.
And one of the reasons Williston's numbers are down is because I was talking to a realtor in Williston up there. All of a sudden, their inventory is very tight. You know, everything they get built has been sold. They're building more, and so there's buyers. There's not inventory. Is also a contributor to that. So the oil patch effect. All over the state, average prices for the homes are up. Average list prices are up. There is a tick down in numbers sold right now, and in the Bismarck-Mandan market, I watch that fairly closely since it's my market. We took a real vacation in July. July is always a down month. From the 4th of July until the school starts ramping back up, it's always a little slower part. But this year it was significantly slower, and that's, I think, due to weather and vacations and all of that stuff. So it's not a surprise to see the number of homes sold down a bit. So let's talk oil patch effect.
Just go back to that.
Okay.
That's interesting because under our first home program, it's just first-time home buyers.
Yep.
I would say we had reservations from April through July that were over 20 million a month, which is a lot for us. And August was down a little bit. So, but still higher than what we were thinking it would be. So at least on the first-time home buyer side, from just our window that we have in our agency, numbers were up.
Yeah,
So
that's
it's
true.
interesting, yeah.
You see that. First-time home buyers are going to buy when there's a house.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Yeah, because they're out there looking, and
They're out there looking, and it's their first. There's more of a pressure for them if they can get qualified and find a house they want it.
Yeah.
They have a much higher drive to buy, I think. So that would make sense to me that your numbers would stay up.
Okay.
Okay, Nancy, let's do a public service announcement right now, and then we'll probably do it again near the end of it. If you are a realtor listening or a real estate licensee listening, if you have a real estate license, heads up, you don't get till the end of the year to renew your license.
Oh.
It has been changed in the Century Code, and now you have to have your license renewed by November 15th of 2015. So that November 15th is an important date to remember. That's when you'll have to have your license renewed. It is also when you'll have to have your mandatory and required continuing education done. So you're looking down a gun barrel if you haven't done any of your education yet. It's time to get busy because you have till November 15th.
And I can let you know that we, the North Dakota Association of Realtors, can help you with that. We have classes coming up October 20th and 21st. And so that's kind of your last chance before that November 15th date.
Yeah.
So if you haven't done it, you can go online or you can come to our classes on October 20th and 21st. That'll be at the Ramada in Bismarck.
So here's a question, Nancy, I don't know. Do you need to be a realtor, a member of the association, to take those classes, or can you take them if you have a real estate license?
No, you can take them if you have a real estate license. The cost for the class is a little different, but anyone can take them.
Okay. And if you're curious what the difference is, folks, you can have a real estate license without being a member of the North Dakota Association of Realtors. Many appraisers, some bankers, folks in the industry, auctioneers will carry a real estate license so that they are covered if they have a real estate transaction, but they are not necessarily members of the association. So that's the difference. So we got that out of the way. We have another nifty thing coming October 3rd. Dave, it's called the new RESPA changes.
It's the new four-letter word, TRID.
TRID.
Yes.
And it is a four-letter word if you're in the industry a little bit.
It's an acronym, but yeah. And you know what? The acronym is escaping me, but it's something to do with disclosures because that's the D. I know that.
Yep.
So anyway, do you know what it is?
I don't right now.
I can't. It's right out of my head. You get used to these acronyms, and it just becomes that's what it is, and you forget what it actually stands for. So
all I know is CFPB.
Yeah,
God bless the
it.
CFPB, and that is
Frank
Consumer
Dodd.
Finance
And
Protection
RESPA
Bureau.
Antilla.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the Frank Dodd Act is responsible. For
Right.
all
So what
this.
we're talking about is on October 3rd, the rules changed for lenders and title companies on how loans are done. Is it good for the home buyer? Because that's what it's supposed to be, CFPB, Consumer Finance Protection Bureau. I think it probably will be in the long run. It does provide more protections. It does require more disclosure. In the short run, it's going to be confusing. It's going to possibly drive a little expense up in closings for the lenders and title companies to deal with this. And it's going to cause them to be very careful. So I think we can look at short-term from the time you buy your house until the time you can actually close on it and move in is probably going to get a little longer so that this paperwork can get worked out. And I think you might see a slight tick up in your fees from the lenders and possibly title companies. There's a real onus on this for particularly lenders and the big lenders, the national banks, in that there's some heavy fines to be levied with this. And the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, as I understand it, is going to be 30% funded by those fines. And so they're not going to shy away from levying.
For them to get
They're out there
fines?
fining a whole bunch of people so far the last 3 years.
Yep.
So yeah, they make a lot of they are part of the Federal Reserve's budget. They have no congressional oversight,
Yep.
so they're not appropriated money. It just comes from the Federal Reserve, and they have a budget. And I don't know if we even know what that number is. But they also look to fines, or have so far, as a major source of revenue for them. I mean, they're fining people $100+ million for violations of stuff like we're talking about here with disclosures and whatnot, and how companies treat consumers. And most of the companies have kind of just said, yeah, okay, there's been some that are fighting back a little bit. Quicken Loans is one of them, I think.
I think their big fines so far have been for companies that have subsidiaries, like lenders that have mortgage companies as subsidiaries.
That's one of them, yes.
And then whether they're disclosing what their relationship
They have
is.
marketing service agreements is a big issue right now. Yeah, but they've fined some people for somewhat legitimate reasons too. I think so that it's not all terrible.
No.
And if it gets some businesses to change some practices that really aren't good for a consumer, I mean, that's okay. But I think a lot of people think they've kind of gone over the top a little bit on some of this stuff. So.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, the fact is, everybody's going to be walking on eggshells.
Yeah.
There is.
But I think the bottom line with this, the new disclosures that are effective October 1st, is that if you are buying a house or you're refinancing and you want to close in 30 days, and you're talking to a realtor, the realtor really needs to understand it. Talk to the bank and find out when should we set that closing date, because the bank might say, let's make it 45 days or 60 days.
Right. It's going to be tough to get a quick close if you're financing.
Till they work through whatever issues are out there that come up, because you can plan for whatever you want, but then you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
The National Association just did a survey of realtors, and what they found is that 70% of realtors are ready. They understand it. They've gone to training, so they're ready. And interestingly, 55.9% said that they will most likely change their purchase agreements to have a longer timeline to be able to, because of these extended deadlines for closings.
So we got the majority are on track. And
but they said there's no
this.
real consensus about how long they might extend those contracts. Some of them might do an additional 15 days, some additional 30, and so on. But, I think until lenders have had more experience with it, and things will then hopefully then go faster at that point in time.
Once they understand how it works and where the
Right.
the mistakes are made and whatnot, then it'll tighten up again, I think, and they'll figure it out.
Yeah, there is some pressure being put on the CFPB by realtors and lenders and the land title associations to waive the fines until the first of the year. To just give us a chance
breather.
to go.
Yeah.
And with that, we will take a breath and go to our next break. We'll be right back.
Currently, it's 75.
Get the app called Radio Pup for your iPhone and take us everywhere you go. Bismarck and Mandan's own Super Talk 1270.
Welcome back to the Dakota Housing Network. I'm Greg Larson, and
Dave Floor.
that's who you are.
Yeah.
Nancy Willis.
And Jim Walsh laying down a little Kiss music for us
There you
this
go.
morning.
Thank you, Jim.
That's right.
All right.
Little grease paint and rock and roll. I love it.
All right.
So we're going to start this segment out, I guess either way works, with something that is kind of interesting, kind of silly, but getting pretty serious, called patent trolls. And we were making jokes at the break about do they live under a bridge and do they make you pay to cross the bridge?
Yeah, the old kid story.
It's actually not too
And
far
do they have
from
those
that.
big moles on their face?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if somebody knows the story, the old kid story, call in 663-1270 because we can't remember exactly how it goes.
Yeah.
But if you have,
We'd like
and
to
then
know.
if you have a question for Nancy or Greg or myself, please do 663-1270.
Okay, so
All right.
what's happening with patent trolls? And it's becoming a big deal. It's affected realtors not so much, well, it's affected realtors now, or at least the Real Estate Association in North Dakota. It's been big in Texas. What's happening is lawyers, and I don't mean that disrespectfully necessarily, but law firms are buying up old patents, and then they are searching the internet to find out if they can find someone who may be using that patent without a license.
Okay.
And what they're finding is a lot of drop downs in like, let's pick a real estate. Every real estate board has an MLS, multiple listing service, where you can go look at houses.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to look at more pictures, you click on a button and more pictures come up. That might be a potential patent violation, as it were.
So wouldn't that be like every website?
Kind of,
ever
yes.
built?
Yeah.
So
Or
what
some
these
of the map websites,
Yeah.
like whether it's Google Maps or one of those.
Yeah.
So
Someone's
what-
pulling something down.
Yeah.
what these guys do, these pull downs or pop ups, they're finding this and then they're writing cease and desist letters. You're in violation of our patent number, this and that, and the fine is this and that, or we will sue you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a lot of small real estate firms can afford a $10,000 fine more than they can afford to fight this
Yeah.
in court. And so what they're doing is they're trolling for fines, and they're getting them somewhat. Now, any time that I'm aware of, larger real estate firms have fought it. They've just dropped it and collected the fines off of others.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what's happening. It isn't just real estate. It's happening everywhere. And it happened in our office at the North Dakota Association of Realtors office. Nancy.
Yeah, it was interesting. One of our staff is a big fantasy football fan, and she goes online with a group to do her fantasy football picks. Well, one of the sites that they use suddenly went down, and everybody, started complaining about it. Well, what they found out was it was due to a patent troll. They received a letter. The person that was doing the fantasy football site received a letter saying that some of the applications on it were licensed and they shouldn't be using them. So they decided to just take the site down rather than fight the patent troll. So she was very upset about it, as were the other members that were participating in this fantasy football league, because they lost all their past history
Sure.
of who had picked what and who had won and who, so it became very personal in the office that somebody was doing these things.
Yeah. So, but you said this has been big. I mean, I've heard of it
Yeah.
It's not just, they're not targeting real estate. They're targeting whatever they can dig up,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
they're targeting everybody.
But
Yeah.
but real estate has been hit a little harder than some are. Maybe we're just hearing
exceptionally
more
hard
about
in
it.
the south and southeast.
Is there a reason for that?
Larger size real estate firms, I think.
And that's where these trolls live, maybe.
Could be. They go anywhere, though. I mean,
Yeah.
and interestingly, one of the people in Congress who's in the lead of getting fighting this is our own Congressman Kevin Kramer. He's
Oh, okay.
co-sponsored most of the legislation, and he says, but the problem is, there are legitimate patents for some of this stuff,
Sure.
and you can't just throw them all. throw them all out. So you have to be pretty surgical on what you prohibit
Yeah.
in the law, and that's where they're fighting it.
Well, one of the issues is these trolls, they get the license for patents, but they themselves aren't using
Right.
the patent. Like they're
Yeah.
not selling a service related to the patent or supplying anything related to the patent. So the legislation in Congress is saying that you can't have a licensed patent unless you actually are using the patent.
Yeah.
And some of the concern with that is some of the colleges and universities will sometimes license patents to be able to do research where they may not actually yet have a product that is in existence or are supplying a service yet. So that's where, sort of the challenge occurs.
Negative unintended consequences.
There
if
you
do
go.
something.
Yeah.
We
Negative
hit it on
about
unintended
earlier.
consequences. Yep.
But really, this could affect
Anything.
Anybody.
I mean, especially a small business
Absolutely.
could really
that's-
get hit hard by this.
And that's kind of who
Frankly,
they're targeting,
yeah,
are
that's
the
who they're
small
going for.
businesses.
Yeah.
Because they're figuring the small business would rather just pay a fee to them than to go to court and try and
Yeah,
fight
so
it in court
I mean,
and spend
going
millions.
after Google, Yahoo, Wells Fargo,
Amazon,
US Bank,
any of
Amazon,
those,
that's not
yeah.
going to get you anywhere because they'll just trounce you.
Yeah,
Right.
they'll take you to court. They'll say,
But,
fine, take me to court.
Our neighbor down the strip here, Bill Barth, Ford, if they got nailed with this, yeah, I don't know how well they do, but they probably say, oh, okay, it's cheaper to
yeah,
pay that
to just
off.
pay the fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is, that's just wrong, isn't it? When
It's
it-
almost like blackmail, really.
It
Yeah,
is.
it's certainly opportunistic.
Yeah.
It really is. But
But then, so how does Representative Kramer think you can really do something? I mean, like you said, you got legitimate stuff out there, so you have to be surgical, but there's so much out there.
Yep.
How can you write a law to cover this without having the unintended consequences?
Yeah, I think-
It seems.
as I understood it, I think the goal is we're not going to get it stopped, but we can stop a bunch of it.
Yeah.
We can stop the obvious.
Yeah.
Obviously,
Yeah, these
if-
patent trolls will have to prove, if they are threatening somebody, that they have a legitimate
Yeah.
reason to be using this patent, or that somehow the people they're threatening is in fact damaging them in some way, which
Yeah.
in these cases they wouldn't be
Yeah.
able to show.
In a university, that'd be easy to grant an exemption for a university, for
Right.
instance, or
Right.
legitimate medical researcher or something like,
Yeah, the Pharmaceutical Association is against
Yeah,
the
sure.
legislation because they
Yeah.
have the same kinds of concerns.
Yeah. But yeah, that seems fair. It's like you actually have to be doing something. Like these people
Yeah.
would have to been actually running a fantasy football site that used that particular
Right.
thing to, yeah.
So
Okay. Well,
Well,
look out for patent
that-
trolls.
yep.
Look under all the bridges.
Yeah.
They're
when you cross
ugly.
them.
They got warts, big noses, hairy heads, too big for their bodies.
Make sure you
and
check your
feet
bridges.
with toe fungus.
Yeah. Ooh. Okay.
Well, let's talk about some other fun things. We just had a landmark judgment for holding off on waters of the U.S. And why should real estate and the housing industry be concerned about waters of the U.S.?
Why
Well-
should they, Greg?
Let us tell you.
Okay.
Nancy's going to tell
Oh, okay, Nancy.
We're going to the expert right off the
Well,
bat.
for those who don't know, Waters of the U.S. is a EPA rule that came out recently that expands the definition of bodies of water that drain into navigable waters, so into rivers that eventually end up in the
So
ocean.
something would drain into the Missouri River
Correct.
eventually.
Raindrop
Okay.
to the ocean right there.
And what this rule basically says is anything will eventually drain into a navigable body of water.
It's going to go to the lowest spot, right?
So a puddle, anything, where before that wasn't the case. So it went into effect, it was supposed to go into effect August 28th. There were 13 states, including North Dakota, that went to federal court to ask that it be stopped. And in North Dakota, there was an injunction that was approved to hold off on the rule until, there can be more discussion about how this rule expands this definition. But in states that weren't included in this court case, it did go into effect on
okay.
August 28th. It's interesting because a lot of farm and ranch organizations are also suing the EPA over this rule because basically stock ponds, anything on your property that they determine might eventually drain into a navigable body of water, they have oversight over now.
Okay, so
So-
if if a farmer, rancher, has a stock pond on his land and he decides, oh, I'm going to get rid of that, and he pokes a hole in it and drains it out, then that, because he could potentially do that, that they could regulate what that
That's
stock pond on
correct.
his farm.
Yeah,
Or
they,
Even though right
wetlands
now
that
it's all
might,
fine.
right?
Yeah.
Or
Wow.
wetlands that might be on his property.
So this is
they could regulate a dugout. You know,
Yeah, the
Yeah.
expansion
a cattle
is.
dugout.
As,
They could
I
regulate
mean,
it.
at one of the interim committee hearings I went to, the Attorney General's office, the person working on this said that somebody asked her, "Is there anything not regulated in North Dakota?" And she said, at this point in time, based on the definition, her response would be no,
wow.
that there is nothing not regulated.
Including irrigation. Can you imagine that? If
So
I'm
the guy with his irrigation,
irrigating my corn and the
because the
EPA
runoff.
decides
yeah,
that
sure.
I'm watering too much because there's too much runoff coming,
Okay.
they can stop me from irrigating.
So they would say you can only irrigate so much,
Right.
so often during the day. Even they could say you
Right.
can do it for 10 minutes or something.
Right, and that's, of course, of importance to the North Dakota Association of Realtors because we do advocate for landowner rights, and that includes farmers,
Yeah.
ranchers, homeowners, towns. This could even affect how towns allow water use.
Yeah, I
all
mean,
of it.
watering my lawn or my
Yep.
garden, right?
Well, there's a
I-
whole discussion right now about sewage and the whole sewage systems in communities,
Yeah.
and how those might be affected. So it's really far-reaching, and obviously we believe that property owners should be able to make decisions about what they do on their own property, and this certainly, in many cases, wouldn't allow them to do that.
Yeah. And I would assume the EPA probably argues that they would never do anything like regulating how much somebody can water their lawn. But we all
Well,
know
they
that
say that they will be reasonable
yeah,
about this.
Yeah, that's the key point, right? Is they will. That we
Because
be
they've been
reasonable.
so reasonable about coal, and
And
they've
the
been so
ironic
reasonable
thing is that they
about-
released those chemicals in Colorado into the river.
Oh, that was nasty.
And everyone's saying, so right after this goes into effect, where this is supposed to make waters cleaner,
and
the
your own
EPA violates their own new rule.
Yeah. When,
I wonder if they're going to find themselves.
maybe
There's probably no provision for them.
probably not. Maybe they have to buy each other lunch or something.
Yeah,
you know?
stay late after
there probably
work.
needs to be another rule that allows them to find
that was pointed out right away after that happened. Is well, the EPA, if that would have been a private company that owned that gold mine, that would have went in there.
Big trouble.
Boy.
Oh, yeah, heck
Okay.
to pay.
Oh,
We are going to head away for our final break, and when we come back, we're going to have a subject that is really kind of funny when you think about it.
Creepy
It's
crawly.
going to be a lot of fun.
it's kind of creepy crawly.
So we'll see you after the break.
Currently, it's 82.
Sean Hannity, weekdays at 2, only on Super Talk 1270.
And we are back. Welcome back to Dakota Housing Network. I am Greg Larson, and with
Dave
me
Floor.
is Dave Floor and
Nancy Willis.
from the North Dakota Association of Realtors, and we're getting into the bugs. We're
Ooh,
getting
bugs.
creepy and crawly. We're going to talk about termites in North Dakota.
We don't have termites in North Dakota. What are
Well,
you
just
talking
ask
about?
the FHA.
Well, we don't. That's the interesting thing. So let's tell you a little bit about this. Recently, some of our realtors in the Williston area found out that they had several loans that were rejected because a termite inspection had not been done. And come to find out that there is an FHA requirement that if you are in a considered risk area, there needs to be a termite inspection for new construction or construction that's a year old or less. And
Okay.
so they said, well, in the past, we've always been able to just provide something from Extension that says there are no termites in North Dakota.
Yeah.
And that's been acceptable, but now that's no longer acceptable.
Okay. They have evidence.
Yeah.
Well, they say they have evidence,
Okay.
but when we did a little digging into the evidence, it turns out there was a study done
Oh
in
no. The
19 are you ready
ubiquitous
for
study.
this?
Okay.
1963.
There was a study in 1963,
Correct.
and we've ignored it this whole time.
There were a couple of scientists, a married couple, Wheeler and Wheeler,
Okay.
that actually were doing ant collections. They were collecting ants for
Okay.
a study they were doing. And within this collection of ants, they happened to find some termites.
Okay.
They were
Dead termite.
Dead
Dead
termites.
termites,
Dead
okay,
termites
all right.
that were like under a log somewhere.
Okay.
So never close to any property, never in any danger of doing anything to any house or
Okay.
anything. But because they found those termites a long time ago, the Forest Service created a map for termite risk and showed 5 counties in North Dakota as being slight to moderate risk for termite.
Okay. If for everybody out there, Nancy has a map, and you said 5 counties.
5 counties.
This
Williams,
map doesn't look like it has even one county's covered.
It was
Totally.
Williams, Billings, McKenzie, Golden Valley, and Slope.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is these termites were only found in Billings County. So the rest of the counties never even had any termites found. So it makes no sense. And I talked to Extension and I said, so have there been termites in North Dakota? Has anybody found termites? Have anybody seen termites? And they said, no, there's never been, other than this study, there's never been any report of any termites, dead or alive, in North Dakota.
Okay, so when I originally heard about this, I think the assumption was that just because of people moving here, and that there was termites actually discovered because people brought it in their moving van
Right,
or something.
right.
You know, which okay, you can understand that if they move from the southern climate.
Could be in the furniture, could
Yeah,
be.
yeah, and it,
Yeah.
you know that just happens. But okay, so FHA is basing this on a study that was done in 1963. So somebody at FHA actually saw this apparently.
This study was used by the Forest Service to create a map that has been used
Okay.
since the early 90s.
This is
So-
the map we have.
And FHA found this. Somebody found
Right.
the map
Yep.
from 1963.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right.
Well, this
Yeah.
is a newer map, but I mean, it
Well,
looks the
yeah,
same.
it's the same thing.
Yeah, the
As
map
it's
is
based
from
on that study.
1990, but it's based on that.
Oh, the map's from that. Well,
1963
that's an updated
Yeah.
1990. That's updated.
So what we have in essence is we have termites that were spotted in 63,
Yeah.
Dead termites.
dead.
Dead ones.
Dead termites.
We have never found any termites in a wall anywhere in North Dakota.
Yeah.
We've never found termites alive in North Dakota.
Yeah.
Now, I will tell you, I talked to a guy who's been in the lumber business for years about this, and he said back in the 60s, they used to buy southern yellow pine as
Okay.
framing material, and they would sometimes get termites, you know, they'd
Yeah. Oh,
in
like
that
we were
wood,
just
but they
talking
would
about.
never survive a winter.
Yeah.
So, anyhow, so termites come into the state, but they don't live. So we have no incidents of termites. Now, there's been rumors of termites up in the Turtle Mountains. Kind of not true. They found some termites in a couple of mobile homes that were up there that came from the south.
Okay. So exactly what we just said.
Yeah,
They come here through other means and then they die
Yeah.
because they don't like 20 below.
So
Exactly.
let's regulate what doesn't exist.
Yeah, well, that's how you fix the problem, Greg.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm wondering, what's the termite inspection going to be? We don't have anybody trained
To do it.
termite. Well, I think we do have some, probably some exterminators.
Well,
probably
exterminators.
are trained to
Yeah.
come in and look for termites, and they're going to come in and shine their light around and say, "Yep, okay, that's $50. You don't have termites."
Yeah. So, folks, when you see that on your settlement statement, or
Termite
disclosure,
inspection.
termite
There you go.
inspection, this is the reason why.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it even gets funnier. Nancy, you called these guys and said, "What are we going to do about this?" Right? And their answer was, "We'll provide training."
Yeah.
We'll
So
provide
you can do the
FHA 's
inspections
gonna
that we
provide
don't
training?
need.
Okay. All right.
Well, we'll provide training about why we're doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Okay.
we're not going to, fix
Okay.
the problem.
Okay.
And I think you need to sign up and pay for the training, if I'm not mistaken, probably.
of course you do.
Sure. So,
yeah.
So we've asked our congressional delegation if they can kind of take a look at this, which they're
Yeah.
doing right now.
Yeah.
We're hoping that those counties will kind of go back to being exempt,
Well,
like the rest of North Dakota is from any termite.
I mean, if somebody actually found some, that would be a different story.
yeah.
Then okay, maybe they've changed and morphed into termites that can survive
And
the winter.
somewhere down the road, that's likely to happen because the termites are becoming more temperature resistant that are in the northern
Yeah, they evolve.
part of their boundaries. And so they're, like a glacier
Yeah.
moving north. So I don't. In my lifetime, we're not going to see it.
Yeah.
But it might be an issue.
Yeah. And certainly if it would be a problem, I mean, you don't want termites in your house, but
Right.
I mean,
Exactly.
realistically, this is just not an issue here.
Right. So we have
So South Dakota is
got an edge right there. Mitchell
well, they
has
got a
had,
bunch area covered down
yeah.
in the southeast.
but
Have you
we're
talked to your
calling
counterparts?
slight to moderate.
Yeah. Have you talked to your counterparts?
I
in
have
South
not.
talked
but-
to them, but I know that originally the map the FHA was using is that Forest Service map.
Yeah.
That's the map that they've used to determine termite risk.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that same map is what's
Well,
being used for the entire country.
And of course, a big chunk of, Montana, a bigger chunk of Montana than
Right.
North Dakota is involved in this slight to moderate risk. So,
Yeah, and there again, if I understand it, they have been found. They don't exist
Yeah,
in most
yeah.
of those
Right.
places. So
So it is going to be a hot topic at the Realtor Convention in 2 weeks?
it's going to be a source of jokes after hours. I
Okay,
can tell
all
you
right,
that.
okay, all right.
We're gonna-
You're not going to have a giant termite?
I think
somebody dress up as a giant
we
termite?
could. Yeah, we might be selling chocolate-covered
We hadn't
termite
thought of
candy,
that. There you go.
whatever. We're not
Yeah.
sure about that. But I just okay. Here's my conservative nature coming out. It just boggles my mind. We've talked about it 3 or 4 times. Really, non-existent termites we got to inspect for.
Yeah.
I mean, we're Ghostbusters now.
Yep, there you go.
And Waters of the U.S.
Well, there's a new movie coming out. We could
right.
be part of the new
Waters
movie.
of the U.S. Really? We need to regulate that much, that far?
Yeah.
So anyway, that's just me. I thought you'd enjoy the termites, folks. And let's just, we have just a few minutes left. Let's talk just a little bit about what's happening in the eastern part of the state with their water and flood protection.
Oh, there we go. Fargo, that diversion.
Fargo,
think
frankly, needs water.
Yeah, Joel Heitkamp just had something on the
Joel
flood
did?
diversion.
Yep. Well, the diversion, of course, there's 2 sides to every issue. Someone is going to suffer for that, just like when they built Garrison Dam.
Yep.
Someone loses ground. I can remember as a little child sitting in my grandfather's pickup with him as we watched the water start to take his ranch.
But Fargo needs water.
Fargo not only has to protect from water, they need water.
Okay.
Their industrial development, if they don't have a better, a more reliable source of water, is in trouble.
Okay.
As is West Fargo, as is up and down the Red River. Now you get north of about, I want to say Mayville, and it's the wrong town. What's
Hillsboro?
Hillsboro. Then they're in another aquifer, and they got water.
Ah, okay.
But
All right.
below that, they need some water, and we have a source for it. And there's going to be a lot of politics played, but I think in the long run, we're going to have to see North Dakota step up and get that water there because
Oh, it's
you
the
can't
it's
ignore
our biggest
you,
city.
You can't ignore the biggest city and their
Or
industrial
biggest
development.
community because
Yep.
it's 2 cities and a lot of small towns around
largest
there.
population.
Yeah. So the Cass County, let's put it that way,
Right.
is what we're talking about.
So
here.
here's the deal: Fargo needs water, and we need to get rid of termites in the Williston area. And in between, there's certainly something we need to fight about.
Can we? No, that won't work.
Well, I'm waiting for lunch.
Okay.
But that's it for this week. Thank you very much. We appreciate your kind attention, and we will see you next Thursday. Bye-bye.